We have here a 2021 Jeep Gladiator. The rear differential case is getting pulled out, so it can get an upgraded motive gear ring and pinion set. While this install happens within a JT, Jeep YJ, TJ, JK, and JL gear sets, will shim the same way. Motive Gear always recommends that installers read the provided instructional guide before beginning an install with our gear sets. Correct installation can be the difference between a safe extended gear life or premature failure. Disconnect the rear sway bar at the end links and then from the axle. Drain the differential housing. Unbolt the brake caliper. Never let a caliper hang from the brake line. Always secure the caliper to the frame with an S-hook or cable ties so there's slack in the brake line. Remove the rotor bolts. Remove the rotor. Unbolt the axle shaft retainer nuts. If necessary, use a slide hammer to remove the axle shafts from the axle housing. Repeat the same steps on the passenger side. Unbolt the drive shaft from the rear pinion yoke. Use a bungee cord or other secure method to suspend the loose end of the drive shaft securely away from the working area. It is very important to mark the carrier caps so they can be reinstalled in their exact location and orientation during reassembly. Only then unbolt the carrier caps. Remove the differential case. Save the differential bearing shims for reference of the starting thickness for each side's shim stack during reassembly. Remove the pinion nut from the yoke. Use a punch to help remove the pinion from the housing. Do not let any hardened gears that may be reused hit the floor. Remove the pinion seal. Be careful not to gouge the housing during this process. The outer pinion bearing is now free to be removed. Remove the outer pinion race, inner pinion race, and pinion shims from the housing. The easiest way to do this is to tap out the races from the opposite side. Place the differential case and pinion on a padded or wooden workbench. Unbolt the ring gear from the differential case. The ring gear may need some careful persuasion to release from the interference fit. Lightly file the surfaces where the new ring gear will sit. The goal is not to score the surfaces, but to clean the surfaces. Slide the new ring gear into place on the differential case. Use thread locker on all the ring gear bolts. First tighten, then torque the ring gear bolts to the motive gear factory specifications, following a star-type pattern as you tighten them. Place the inner pinion bearing on the pinion shaft with the tapered side up. Cover the inner pinion bearing with its race to protect the bearing as it's pressed. Press the inner pinion bearing by the inner bearing race to protect the new pinion. Do not apply pressure to the outer bearing race or roller cage. Measure the thickness of the shims that you remove during disassembly, and then select the same shims from the installation kit. We always recommend using fresh shims for every install. Drive a new inner bearing race and outer bearing race into their housing positions with the new pinion shims sandwiched in between. The open end of the bearing races should be facing outward to receive the respective bearings. Set up for pattern testing by having a friend hold the pinion in place within the housing. Place the outer bearing on the end of the pinion shaft. Secure the yoke over this. Tighten down the pinion nut. Check for sufficient pinion preload as determined by the differential specification with an inch-pound torque wrench. Accurate measurement is read while the gauge is sweeping. This one reads 20 inch-pounds, which is appropriate for a Jeep Gladiator. Place the differential case in the housing with the determined differential bearing shims on each side. A good place to start is with the same shim thickness that were removed during initial disassembly. Place the carrier caps back in their original positions and snug the bolts. Check to see if Backlash is in the appropriate range with the dial indicator. The appropriate range for motive gear rear differential gears is 7 thousandths to 9 thousandths for street gears. This one reads 7 thousandths. If the backlash is outside of the appropriate range, remove the differential case, adjust the differential bearing shims, and retry. When backlash is set, paint a few ring gear teeth, drive and coast side with marking compound. Rotate the marked teeth several times through the pinion before attempting to read the pattern. Check the pattern against the provided pattern guide. Adjust shims as necessary to center the pattern. This example shows a good pattern. The drive side is centered both between the face and root of the tooth as well as the toe and heel. The coast side is also centered. When satisfied with the contact pattern, remove the differential case and pinion in preparation for final assembly. Have a friend help remove the pinion to protect it from falling. Install a new pinion seal. Place a crush sleeve or solid spacer over the inner pinion bearing. Return the yoke over the end of the pinion shaft. Use thread locker on the pinion nut before attaching and carefully torquing to manufacturer's specifications. Use an inch-pound torque wrench to check pinion preload again. Set the differential case back in the housing with the same shims that were used to achieve the previous contact pattern. Secure and torque the carrier caps to manufacturer's specifications. Slide the axle shafts back into their housing and bolt onto the axle. Return the rotors to the wheel they were removed from. Reattach the rotor bolts and brake calipers. Torque all to their manufacturer's specifications. Carefully lower the drive shaft and reattach to the yoke. Torque to the manufacturer's specifications. Use the kit-supplied sealant or gasket on the differential cover before bolting back onto the housing. Return the rear sway bar to its place and torque. After the installation is complete, follow the new gear break-in procedure provided in the instructional guide. New ring and pinions, especially at a high numeric ratio, can cause excessive heat buildup within the differential housing that can soften the gear teeth, significantly shortening the gear life.